The Ottomans. During the Second Mongol invasion, Tamerlane had met and very nearly annihilated another rising power, the Ottomans. Under a minor chieftain named Othman, groups of Turkish-speaking peoples in Anatolia were united in the Ottoman Confederation which, by the second half of the 14th century, had conquered much of present-day Greece and Turkey and was threatening Constantinople. The Ottoman state was born on the frontier between Islam and the Byzantine Empire. Turkish tribes, driven from their homeland in the steppes of Central Asia by the Mongols, had embraced Islam and settled in Anatolia, on the battle lines of the Islamic world, where they formed the Ottoman Confederation. They were called Ghazis, warriors for the faith, and their highest ambition was to die in battle for their adopted religion. In addition to their military abilities, the Turks seem to have been endowed with a special talent for organization. Towards the end of the Ottoman Empire, this talent fossilized into bureaucracy, and a moribund bureaucracy at that. But at the beginning, when its institutions were responsive to the needs of the people and the state, the Ottoman Empire was a model of administrative efficiency. This, together with a series of brilliant sultans, culminating in the redoubtable Suleiman the Magnificent, established the foundations of an empire that at its height was comparable to that of the Romans. The first important step in the establishment of this empire was taken in 1326 when the Ottoman leader Orhan captured the town of Bursa, south of the Sea of Marmara, and made it his capital. It was probably during the reign of Orhan that the famous institution of the Janissaries, a word derived from the Turkish yeni sheri, new troops, was formed. An elite corps of slave soldiers conscripted from the subject population of the empire, they were carefully selected on the basis of physique and intelligence, educated, trained, introduced to Islam, and formed into one of the most formidable military corps ever known. At a later period the Janissaries became so powerful, that they made and unmade sultans at their will, and membership in the corps was a sure road to advancement. It was at this point in history that Tamerlane and his Mongols advanced into Anatolia and very nearly crushed the Ottomans forever. They recovered, however, and later, under the leadership of a new sultan, Murad II, besieged Constantinople for the second time. They were repulsed, but by 1444 they had advanced into Greece and Albania, leaving Constantinople isolated though unconquered. Murad II was succeeded by Mehmed Muhammad Al-Fatih II, called the Conqueror, because on May 29, 1453, after his artillery finally breached Constantinople's massive walls, the city fell. After the fall of Constantinople, and during the 16th century, the Ottoman system evolved the centralized administrative framework by which the sultans maintained effective control over the extraordinarily diverse peoples in the vast empire. Constantinople, located at a meeting point between the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea, and strategically positioned either from geo-trade or geopolitics, was the most prosperous and richest city in Europe for centuries. Napoleon Bonaparte once stated, "If this world is a country, Constantinople is the most deserving of being the capital of the country." Ciari, 2013. Napoleon also once said, "If I had control of Constantinople then I would be in control of the world." Talib, 2014, Fikri, 2010. Constantinople was built by the great Constantine Emperor in 330 CE and became the capital of the Byzantine, functioning as the capital and center of the Byzantine Empire of Eastern Rome for over 10 centuries. The fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Empire under the reign of Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and gave a blow to the West Christian Kingdom, while the Turks strengthened their position in Europe and expanded their dominance in the Balkans and the Mediterranean. Ciari, 2013. Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih was the only one of the Sultan and army chiefs who defeated Constantine IX, penetrated the Byzantine defense line and conquered Constantinople that had never been done by the sultans and predecessors of Islam before. Izad, 2014. He was appointed to occupy Ottoman Empire in 1451 AD when he was 19 years old, after the death of Sultan Murad II. Amalina et al., 2014. The city of Constantinople was conquered by an Islamic army led by Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih on May 29, 1453 CE. 20th Jumadal Awal 857 AH when he was 21 years old. Talib, 2014, Amalina et al., 2014, Izad, 2014, Freely, 2010. After 800 years of the hadiths of the Prophet, peace be upon him, to that effect, it came to reality. Suki and Muhammad, 2014. In the reign of Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih, besides being the leader of the state, he also set himself as the head of a wise and full-fledged military force. Almost all of the series of wars he led was successful. The tactics and strategies of warfare adopted include a variety of humanitarian guarantees as well as preserving the environment. Aziz, 2004, as forbids killing women, children, parents and damaging property. Irwin, 2014. This proves that Islam is a religion that carries the idea of universal grace and salvation. Before Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih opened the Constantine city, he carefully planned and organized the army. He built the walls of Rumeli Hisari, to prevent the Roman invasion and build sophisticated military equipment like a large cannon, created by Urban, Fahmy, 1993. In addition, he also increased his charity and military training. After preparing the military from physical and spiritual aspects, Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih carried out such a planned attack. He attacked the Constantinople city for 53 days, and succeeded in conquering it. Islamweb, 2018. His success in capturing the city was one of the most important milestones in the development of Islamic history. By practicing the element in the precise spirit of the Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih, he succeeded in realizing the Hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he Nabi, peace be upon him, said, "The city of Constantinople will fall into the hands of the Muslim army. The king is the best king and his army is the best army." Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih once said, "I am on the verge of journey back to God's side. But I hope I am not worried because I am leaving someone like you. Be a just, righteous and caring leader. Raise your protection for your people without exception. Working to spread Islam, it is the obligation of the caliphs on earth. Prioritize religious affairs from any other matters. Do not be tired and bored to keep going. Do not go as an officer, neither a person who does not care about your religion, nor a person who does not keep away from the great sin and who drowns in sin." An important part of this framework was the millet system, essentially a division of the empire into a communal system based upon religious affiliation. Each millet was relatively autonomous, was ruled by its own religious leader, and retained its own laws and customs. The religious leader, in turn, was responsible to the sultan or his representatives for such details, as the payment of taxes. There were also, however, organizations which united the diverse peoples. Particularly important were the guilds of artisans, which often cut across the divisions of religion and location. There was also a territorial organization of the empire, at the upper levels of which was a unit called the Muqadda under the control of a noble or administrator, who could keep some portion of the state revenues, derived from it. The amount varied with the importance of the individual noble or administrator, and he could use it as he saw fit. Such rights were also given to some administrators or governors in place of, or in addition to, salaries, thus ensuring a regular collection of revenues and reducing record-keeping. The Ottoman Empire reached its peak in size and splendor, under the sultan called Suleiman the Magnificent, who ruled from 1520 to 1566, and was known to the Turks as Suleiman the Lawgiver. But from the middle of the 16th century on the empire, began to decline. This process got underway as the office of the Grand Vizier gradually assumed more power and indifferent sultans began to neglect administration. Another factor was that the Janissaries became too strong for the sultans to control. The sultans were further weakened when it became customary to bring them up and educate them in isolation, and without the skills necessary to rule effectively. Some sultans later regained power through political maneuvering, and by playing off factions against one another, but as a result administration was paralyzed. When Europe found a new route to India, thus eliminating the traditional transshipment of goods through the Arab regions of the empire, revenues began to fall, triggering inflation, corruption, administrative inefficiency, and fragmentation of authority. This is part 1 of the Ottomans series, which presents briefly how the Ottoman Empire rose to power, mostly by following Islamic principles. Roots Islamic Homeschool the History series.